Hello, and welcome to another Help for Homeowners webinar session. I am Clemente Mejia, and I supervise the foreclosure prevention program at the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs. This week, we'll be discussing foreclosure avoidance options. It's been 5 months since the President enacted the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. Under the CARES Act, 3.6 million homeowners have been able to suspend mortgage payments through a forbearance plan. However, 2.25 million homeowners on a forbearance plan are at least 90 days delinquent. Currently, we have no indication if the CARES Act will be replaced by another relief package or if the government-sponsored enterprises will extend the moratoria, which is set to expire at the end of this month. There has on the Federal Housing Administration's intent to extend the moratorium on foreclosures and evictions until the end of the year, but no official announcement has been made. So what happens if no new relief bill is enacted or if the various moratoria are not extended? Homeowners who currently have a forbearance plan will continue to forbear payments until the end of their term, and some may be able to extend the forbearance period up to a year. However, others may not be afforded an extension, and they will have to work with their lender on a repayment plan or potentially modify their loan. Navigating the process during to receive legitimate help. Today, we have two foreclosure prevention experts who will tell us more about foreclosure prevention options and where homeowners can get free, reliable help. Catherine Peoples McGill is the Executive Director and founder of HPP Cares. HPP Cares is a HUD-approved counseling agency located in the city of Long Beach. Catherine has been in the arena of helping consumers since 2008 during our first foreclosure crisis. Cello Jovellanos is a foreclosure prevention counselor at the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs. Cello has been assisting property owners for 7 years, and she also investigates real estate cases for the department. Before I turn it over to the presenters, just a reminder to our participants, please keep your mics muted and use the chat box to submit your questions. Catherine?
Welcome, everyone. And we look forward to such an extensive agenda that Yellow and I have to cover today. So without further ado, welcome. We are going to cover some of the foreclosure prevention options that are available to you. In this agenda today, we also are going to be doing a quick education and information that you need to know as you start to navigate mortgage relief options. We are also going to discuss things on how to contact your servicer, options that you need to ask for when contacting your servicer, and then in the event you potentially are in the process of being foreclosed, what would be your options to prevent that from happening? Next slide. This is HPP Cares, as Clemente alluded to earlier. HPP Cares is in fact a HUD housing counseling agency we've established in 2009 during the first foreclosure crises. We are HUD approved and determined by the 501c3 through the IRS. We are NeighborWorks trained and certified, and we are adopters of the National Industry of Standards. This is images of my staff as well as our offices in the Long Beach area. Next slide. Just to get into a quick education as we proceed to the next slide. We're going to just touch base with what exactly is the CARES Act and what did it grant. And so in a nutshell, just to cut right to the chase, the CARES Act allowed individuals who have had a loss of income or a cut in hours to be able to have a forbearance on their mortgages and or their student loans and or their credit cards. And so just as a gist of it, the CARES Act was to assist individuals due to the pandemic. Because this was a national crisis, the government enacted the act. Next slide. The reason I want to show you this particular slide, and I hope many of you make note of the website domain name, is As of September 1st, the moratorium for the state of California will in fact be lifted. And that is a very important date. We hope that it will potentially be extended. And if you want details with regard to the moratorium that was put in place by our Governor Newsom, you can do so by going to this website. I would suggest that you bookmark it and you make note of this website so that you can stay engaged and aware of the moratorium if in fact they do extend it on mortgages beyond the September 1st date. But in fact, it is scheduled to be lifted September 1st. Next slide. I want to touch base and make sure you understand foreclosure timelines. And you say, well, Catherine, I'm not even there yet. How can you even go to foreclosure timelines? I think it's imperative that people understand what the steps are or what the processes and legalities that are in play so you can better understand how important this is and really not allow the phone calls from your bank or the collectors of your mortgages to just fall on deaf ears. The reason we're doing this workshop is because, in fact, it is very important. And so I want you to understand, once you walk away today, some of the important steps that are in the process or the timeline of the foreclosure. And so for many of you, I don't know the circumstances, but I would assume you're here because potentially you're behind on a mortgage payment. And if that is the case, any payment that is not made by the 15th or the 17th of the month is designated as being behind. You will start to get calls from your financial institution, servicer, or lender, as you would refer to them. They will also be sending you notices out, and potentially they could send out a borrower solicitation packet. They must do that by law. It is suggested that you pick up the phone when the bank is calling you, or when the servicers are calling you, or your lender is calling you. Keep the lines of communication open. It is imperative. Next slide. When lenders try to contact you, it's not to intimidate you, it's not to harass you. They have a requirement that they must reach out to you within 30 days of them starting the process of foreclosure. They must provide you the necessary assistance, i.e. a HUD housing counseling agency like my organization, HPP Cares. They must provide you different details with regards to your mortgage in the process of being late. That is why is it imperative that you pick up the phone and speak with your lender, financial servicer, and don't be intimidated by the process. Again, keeping the lines of communication open. Basically, in a nutshell, those calls are recorded. You can make certain notes, you can ask certain questions, and it's best that you ask the servicer first and foremost, instead of reaching out and paying someone to get the information. Next slide. Foreclosure timeline. So in a nutshell, you've stopped making your mortgage payment. And the reason I'm here is because I want you to understand, after you have not made your mortgage payment for 30 to 90 days, they have full right to issue a notice of default. A notice of default is the next step after 90 days worth of payment, where the lender or financial institution will send out a certified notice to you to let you know that, hey, we recognize you're behind, we're here to help, but be aware that the foreclosure process is in play. They want you to reach out to them or reach back to them so you can figure out how to fix or cure this matter. The reason that this notice is important, and I want you to take a look at it, is so that you understand that this is actually a public document. Therefore, as soon as you receive a notice of default, individuals could potentially start to solicit to you. And you say, well, Catherine, why are you sharing that information with me? The reason I'm sharing that with you is because this is how the scammers and all these fly-by-night loan modification companies identify and find out that you are in fact behind on your mortgage. So A, if you are 3 months behind and you have not received a forbearance and you have received a notice of default, it is imperative that you reach out to a HUD housing counseling agency. I'll also give you another quick tip. Go to Home Depot, go to the 99-cent store and pick up no solicitor sign, put that in your front window, on your gate. If you do happen to have a gate around your property, it's imperative that you probably put a beware of dog. Even if you don't have a dog, put those signs out. That will be somewhat of a buffer to prevent people from coming to your door. Because understand, as soon as that public information is out, they will be at your door soliciting to purchase the property and or to try to list your property. And that's how it's made public, through the notice of default. Next slide. This form here is the notice of sale, and it is received probably within 120 days of being default. You say, well, Catherine, what is this opposed to the notice of default form? This form is very imperative. This is letting you know that you actually have a foreclosure sale date on your property. That means your property is going to go to auction on the court steps at whatever the designated time it is. Please understand, this is a very important document. Both documents that I shared you, take those to a HUD housing counseling agency. Allow us to assist you if you're afraid to pick up the phone, which you should not be, in figuring out how to maneuver and negotiate with your financial institution various options. Next slide. Again, foreclosure is foreclosure, and that auction sell date is very imperative. If in fact your property does go to sell on the auction steps, it is paid for and purchased by the new owner. And potentially, once that is done, they have a full right to show up at the property and start the proceedings of eviction. So it is very imperative to understand this timeline that I've set forth with you. As soon as 15 days behind on that first payment and not keeping in contact with your financial institution, and then receiving a notice of default, and then in turn receiving a notice of sale, can ultimately cause you to lose your property through foreclosure. Next slide. I want you to understand within California, we are a judicial state. And so therefore, the borrower will receive a copy of the complaint and or the foreclosure notice, and therefore is able to cure it within a certain amount of time frames. I just want you to understand that the state of California is in fact a judicial state when it comes to foreclosure. Next slide. Now, let's get into the nuts and bolts of this. So prior to contacting your servicer, you want to definitely understand your situation. That means you need to have a full discussion and communication with everyone who resides in that property. We need to identify, is this a temporary situation? Is this a short-term matter? Is this long-term? Is it permanent? And when I refer to those terms, I'm basically saying, are we going to be able to go back to work? Have we lost our job permanently? Have we been forced to retire? What is our scenario with regards to our situation? Another conversation is, how many months, in fact, am I behind? Am I 1 month, 2 month, 3 month? Was I able to get a forbearance? Was I not able to get a forbearance? Or are you like some people where, unfortunately, we do have individuals who have thought, well, since my neighbor and my cousin and Susie, yeah, they lost their jobs, but they're not making their mortgage payment because they got something called a forbearance. I'm going to go ahead and do a payment vacation myself and request a forbearance, when you know necessarily you're not someone who really needs one. So we need to definitely start to isolate and figure out, what's my situation I am in. Step 2, next slide. If you know you can make your mortgage payment, this is not time to make a payment vacation. This is time to stay the course and make your payments on time and do it diligently. For those that are not able to make their mortgage payment, you obviously want to stay in contact with your servicer and begin the process of working with a HUD housing counseling agency like ourselves. Next slide. The next step, besides figuring out your situation and identifying where we are in all this, you want to look at your financial landscape. You want to look at how much income is in fact coming into the household. Are you on unemployment? Is that set to change? Is that set to decrease? Is it going to increase? Have you even received it? Are you someone who is working, yet your hours are cut? Are you someone who was ultimately laid off and just not getting any income? You need to figure out, what is the income that's coming into the home? Are you renting a garage area? Are you renting a back room? We really need to identify how much income is coming into the property. And it's very imperative as we continue through the slides. You also want to look at your budget. Budgets are very important. You want to do 2 sets of budgets, shall I say. You want to set up a crisis budget and you want to look at your regular budget. Now, hopefully everyone's been paying attention to the budgets prior to the COVID and living within one. If you have not been that individual, you want to start to pay attention and get a crisis budget put together. The next slide will show you what potentially someone's regular budget looks like versus a crisis budget. And so in this scenario, we have someone who has a regular income of $4,000. They have their rent, their utilities, gas, groceries, and life as well. They're also able to save. Within a crisis budget, you'll look at your income because potentially it's been cut either half or potentially none at all. You'll look at what your rent needs to be paid and really start to isolate what the necessities are versus the wants. And that is why it's imperative that not only figuring out what situation I'm in, is it going to be long-term? Is it going to be short-term? Is this permanent where I have no money coming in? Then you want to list out what are the most important and imperative expenses that must be paid through this process. Next slide. The next thing you want to do, so this would be action item number 3, is you need to figure out who is servicing your loan. And you say, wow, it's just the bank, or it's the person who sends me my mortgage statement each month. That may not be the case. And so I'm going to show you how to go about identifying and where to find the information to figure out who in fact is servicing your loan, because it is very imperative prior to even getting engaged and conversating with your servicer and your lender about what your mortgages options are. You want to have these things done. Next slide. And so if you are not computer savvy, and as we go into showing you a few links here and there on the next few slides, you may just simply want to pick up the phone and say, hi, so-and-so bank, who is the servicer on my mortgage? Sometimes they may potentially be able to provide you that information. And then again, they may not. They may refer you to maybe a couple of the sites that I'm going to show you in the next few slides. Next slide, please. This is a list of federal agencies that manage federal-backed mortgages. And these links will be provided to you via a newsletter that I'm sure the group will be sending out shortly after. Federal-backed mortgages can be just that, managed by HUD, managed by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, managed by FHA, which is the Federal Housing Administration, managed by the U.S. Department of Affairs, Fannie Mae, or Freddie Mac. You need to figure out who is managing your mortgage and if in fact it is a federally backed mortgage. Next slide to show those who may not, oh, and these are an example of the slides that if you go to these websites, you'll be able to put in a certain bit of information to identify. Now, let's say you do have a Fannie Mae mortgage or Freddie Mac mortgage. You would go to these particular websites, and if you're not able to see the URLs, you will be provided them at the end of this workshop. You will put in your name, the last 4 of your social, your property address, and in one instance, you may put your loan number. You will hit submit, and that information will populate if in fact your mortgage is held by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. If it is not, it will let you know there's no results found. And I would suggest that you go through all the links that we provided you to window down where exactly your mortgage is being held. Now, if your mortgage is not held by any of the first sets of links that I provided you on that previous slide, you will then try the next slide that I'm going to show you, which is the MERS site, where it is the Mortgage Electronic Registration System. You will search by your property address and your borrower, which would be you, details, or maybe you have an FHA or a VA certificate number. Most folks don't have the VA certificate numbers, so you may just go in and search by your property, and that information will populate to let you know. I will let you know if you're not seeing it on the government-backed side or the federal-backed mortgage side, the information would in fact be populated here under the MERS search field. And thank you for populating or highlighting that for me, Kevin. Next slide, please. If you are still not finding information, it would be suggested that you send a certified request or a qualified written request asking for the information. And I will show you on the next slide what that letter needs to state, how it should be addressed, and it's as simple as a few lines. So Kevin, if you would go ahead and show what the actual letter would look like if you're not able to find who serves your loan through the government-backed sides of the mortgages or through the MERS site, you will then write the following letter directly to your lender. I suggest that you do a certified letter, and also where we would get that postcard to confirm that you received. I think it's a receipt of letter postcard, make sure that you get confirmation that they did in fact receive this letter requesting the data. I will let you know, because of COVID, they may be behind about a week or two or so, but long story short, that information will be sent to you, identifying who your servicer is and all the details, as long as you write the letter with this example provided for you. So for all the participants, please take a snapshot. If all else fails, you can't find it on the online, you can't find it with the government-backed online links, you can't find it on the MERS online link, then in turn, you will write a certified letter to your lender. Next slide. The next step, make sure in this process you schedule an appointment with a HUD-approved housing counselor. It is simple as going to www.hud.gov. You will go into the right-hand corner search field and put in HUD counselors, or you may see a link that says foreclosure avoidance counselors. They're one and the same. And as you can see, this is just an example of Southern California. Unfortunately, the slide wasn't large enough so that I could take you through the full gamut of agencies that exist throughout the entire state of California. But once you are onto the HUD.gov website and you are seeking housing counselors, you can in turn identify the state or zip code or city that's closest to you, and it will populate the agencies that are within certain radiuses of a zip code or city to assist you. All nonprofit organizations, when it comes to foreclosure prevention and counseling with regards to mortgage relief services, are free. So why not use them? But I will let you know, prior to getting that meeting with them, you're going to need to have the following steps that I just provided to you so that your counseling session is seamless and is informative and you're actually being very productive in the process. That is why you say, well, why did she have me start off with figuring out what my situation is? My situation is I'm losing my house. I get it. But at the same token, you want to make sure that you truly understand your situation. Is it temporary? Is it this, that, and the other? Because these very questions, my staff, the counselors across the state of California and the country are needing those poignant details. It's also beneficial that you can find out who your servicer is for your mortgage. That's almost imperative through this process. And so that if you have those details where you know your situation, you know who's servicing your mortgage, you know your income and your expenses, you've set up your crises budget, you are going to make the process of getting with a counselor and getting the details and the resources and the next steps seamless. And that is what you need, because time is of the essence, specifically with the fact that the moratorium is potentially being lifted September 1st, 2020. That's in less than 3 days from now. So that is why I'm trying to give you the important steps so you have no time to waste, because I'm certain many of you are behind on your mortgages and those forbearances have lifted because many of you received the forbearances way back in March and or you requested it in April and your lender backdated it to March. So please, please adhere to these steps that I'm providing you because you want to save your home. And as you can see, I'm very passionate about what I do and say, because there are some shenanigans that can sometimes occur if we don't have our ducks in a row when we meet and discuss with those financial servicers and lenders that we have to engage with. Next slide. Contact your servicer. That would be your step after you have scheduled the appointment. And I had you schedule your appointment for the simple fact that we are very business at all of our offices. So you've gotten all the steps. You're going to now set yourself up to contact your servicer. Very important. Make sure you have a pen and paper. And you may think that's funny. I don't want you to be in the business of having this paper here and this paper here. Before you contact with your servicer, I want you to get a brand new notebook. Brand new notebook, pen and paper. And I want that to be the notebook that you keep with you and you document everything that is occurring with your mortgage options and relief and assistance that you're pursuing with your financial institution. I want you to be so detailed that if this happened to go to a case where you were filing a case against your attorney, against your financial institution, You could in turn have the date and time that you spoke with Susie and what exactly she told you, or the date and time that they told you were getting a forbearance, and then 6 months later, there's no forbearance. Very important to document, because it becomes potentially sometimes a he said, she said. So I stress the fact, and you may say, Catherine, this is so kindergarten. Why is she being so kindergarten with this? I don't mean to be, but I'm letting you know because since 2009, I have been in the trenches with this and know the importance of everything that I'm sharing with you today. So again, have the necessary notebook, have a pen and paper, keep it with you at all times because sometimes they do call you when you're out and about. Not a problem. Document, stop, and write everything that was asked of you, where you were supposed to fax it, where you were supposed to email it. Be very detailed, repeat, and ask. For some of my seniors, I have had them, in instances, record the call and let the person who's calling them know that they're recording the call because they may have a hearing problem or they may just be a little bit slower and not able to document certain information. So if you're able to pick up a recorder, grab one because it is very important in this process to make sure that you understand thoroughly everything that is happening and being told to you. The other thing is when you do prepare to call your servicer, you want to make sure that you obviously have the loan number, your full name, the address, and the last four of your social. That's generally what they ask you to get into the system. Now, once you're in the system, you basically want to say, I'm calling to find out what are my mortgage relief options. And then you're quiet. And you allow them to do their due diligence, look through the system to see what particular options you may have. They may discuss with you that you may have a forbearance or a loan modification, and you will learn about some of those options later with Cello as she speaks through the presentation. You can move forward, Kevin. I believe at this point, Cello is going to take over the presentation. Okay.
Hi,
Cello.
Catherine. Hi. Okay, I thought I will be discussing about forbearance. Would you like to talk about refinancing and reverse mortgage first, please?
Perfect. I'm sorry, I just couldn't see a slide number, so forgive me, everyone.
That's okay.
Okay, so we'll go back one more, Kevin. Uh-oh, the other way. Perfect. Okay, so you call the lender, you say, what are my options? One of your options may be simply to be getting a refinance. And you should ask, if you've not been behind on your mortgage and you feel that you might get behind, but having the payment lowered with a lower interest rate, and because you've not been behind, you may in fact be able to receive a refinance. For my individuals who are of 62 years and older, you may want to ask if there is options for you to receive a reverse mortgage. What a reverse mortgage does is it allows you to age in place without any mortgage payments, potentially access some of the equity in the property, and there in turn, you don't have a mortgage payment. If you want more details on reverse mortgages, you need to definitely reach out to a HUD housing counseling agency like ourselves to get the necessary counseling that should be provided to you. But regardless, if it is a refinance or a reverse mortgage, you will need to provide the necessary documents, i.e. your pay stubs, your bank statements, tax returns, and potentially your mortgage statement if you're not working with the same lender. But that very well could be one of your options. And I say that because just the other day, I received a call from a JetBlue pilot who said to me, you know, Catherine, it's so disappointing. I could have gotten a refinance and I wasn't told that I could have gotten a refinance. So I want you to make sure, even if the answer is no, you ask. Because you may be a candidate that if you haven't stepped into a forbearance and you're not behind on your mortgage payments, that might be an option. Next slide. For some people, selling the property or doing a short sale may have to be the answer. You want to ask, what is the process for a short sale or a sale of the property? A regular sale of your property would be just that. You are not upside down on your mortgage. and you basically decide at this point, we really can't afford it. We have quite a bit of equity. We'll start over fresh. We don't want to lose the property. So maybe selling the property might be an option. The other option would be potentially a short sale if in fact you are upside down on the mortgage. And what does that all mean? That means, you know what? I don't want to do the forbearance. I don't want to do a loan modification. I can't get a refinance. I'm not old enough for a reverse mortgage. So in turn, and I owe so much on my payment or on my mortgage that the amount I owe is more than the value of the property, short sale may be your thing. So these are options, just 1 and 2, that you need to ask and discuss with the lender at your financial institution. The next slide, Cello will take over and share with you what forbearance is.
Thank you, Catherine. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Cello Jovellanos, and I'm a foreclosure prevention counselor here at the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs. So let me start by discussing with you what are your options to avoid foreclosure during this time of pandemic. The first thing that I would like to talk about is the COVID-19 forbearance options. So we keep on talking about forbearance. What is forbearance anyways? So forbearance is when a mortgage servicer or lender allows a homeowner to temporarily pay their mortgage at a lower payment or pause paying their mortgage. So keep in mind that this is not a loan forgiveness. In most cases, forbearance payments are added to the back of the loan. You would actually need to apply for this via a loan modification. And also, if you wanted it to be a balloon payment, or again, at the end of the loan. How to request for it? So borrowers can request forbearance via any available method of communication. No documentation of hardship is required to receive forbearance. Most servicers have established email application process. I would like to add that it is best to check the website of your lender, where you will find there a link that states COVID-19 information or assistance. That is usually the page where you can read the terms of the options, usually forbearance, that your lender offer, and also on how to submit the application. Next slide, please. So make sure you understand how the forbearance will be repaid. There can be different forbearance programs or options depending on the type of your loan. So if and when your income is restored, please reach out to your servicer and resume making payments as soon as you can, so your future obligation is limited. And depending on the kind of loan you have, there may be different forbearance options. Just keep in mind that lenders are required to ask homeowners if they can pay back the amount owed at the end of forbearance. Homeowners cannot pay the full amount, may explain the hardship, and they want to apply for a loan modification. Next slide, please. Okay, so how do you request forbearance or mortgage relief? So you'll need to reach out to your servicer. How do you do that? You can call them, or the best way to do it is to go to their website, as what I have previously explained. For homeowners who are afraid to contact their lenders directly or don't know what to ask, the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs Foreclosure Prevention Counselors may assist you in contacting your lenders via conference calls. Our phone number is 1-800-593-8222. Next slide, please. Okay, what are the questions that you may want to ask if you have decided to contact your lender? First of all, you need to find out what options are available to you to assist you temporarily to reduce or suspend your payments. Are there forbearance, loan modification, or other options applicable in your situation? Can you waive late fees on your mortgage account? And so on and so forth. So it would be advisable to list all these questions so that you will be ready when you contact your lender. Next slide, please. Okay, it's very important, as what Catherine have emphasized previously, to get everything in writing. Once you're able to secure forbearance or another mortgage relief option, ask your servicer to provide you a written documentation that confirms the detail of your forbearance agreement and that you're clear on what the terms are. Next slide. Now, once you receive your mortgage relief, so again, keep written documentation on hand. Please pay attention to your monthly mortgage statement. Again, another reminder that if you're under forbearance, lenders cannot add late fees or other charges on your monthly mortgage. Stop or change auto payments for your mortgage. Please make sure that you make any necessary adjustment to avoid any fees or charges. If you're still doing ACH, but your month, the amount that you're forwarding to them is less than what you're supposed to pay, the bank can actually send back all your payments back to you. So you have to make sure that you're forwarding to them the correct amount or payment. Keep an eye on your credit. Please be aware that the annualcreditreport.com offers free weekly online reports through April 2021 to monitor your credit during the pandemic. Also, some banks have online features wherein you can access for free FICO credit scores. Big banks like Chase, Wells Fargo, or Discovery actually offer this type of service. And please do take advantage of these programs. Next slide. Okay, so this is just a reminder that mortgages in forbearance as a result of COVID-19 have to be reported as current on credit reports. That is the law, and it is on Section 4021 of the CARES Act passed by the Congress at the end of March. It says servicers shall report the credit obligation or account as current. So again, lenders cannot impose fees, late charges when the homeowner is under forbearance. Next slide. Okay, once your income is restored, contact your servicer and resume your payments. With forbearance, you still owe the payments that you missed, but fewer missed payments mean you'll owe less down the road. If you're continuing to receive some income that turns out to be more than you need for your bills and expenses, consider putting the extra money away so you can use it to pay off what's needed later. So it's very important that we save for a rainy day. And your property taxes and insurance should be paid if your mortgage has an escrow account. But please confirm this with your servicer. Next slide. Okay, how are you going to repay your forbearance? So after your forbearance period ends, you will have to make arrangements with your servicer to repay any amount suspended and paused. If you were able to save during those forbearance time, then you can go ahead and pay your lender in full. But I bet most of our homeowners won't be able to do this. So it's advisable to contact HUD-approved counselors to assist you in applying for a loan modification. And you can also contact our department for assistance in applying for those other options. Next slide. Okay, so just a note on this slide that my colleague and I did a previous webinar about foreclosure prevention scams. Please let me know if you'd like to watch the recording of the video, or I can also send you the slides of the presentation. But just be aware of foreclosure prevention scams out there. These are the following red flags. So they charge a high upfront fee for their services, which is illegal here in California. They promise to get you a loan modification. Please keep in mind that no one can guarantee you a loan modification. your servicer or your lender will get all your get a copy of your income, and from there they will review. It will undergo through an underwriter to make sure that you will be qualified for a loan modification. The scammers will ask you to sign over your property title. So please be aware of what you're signing for. They also ask you to sign papers you don't understand. Most of the time they will rush you to sign this paperwork so that you will not be able to understand what's in the contract. They also tell you to make payments to someone other than your servicer. That is another red flag. They tell you to stop making payments altogether, which is, it really doesn't make sense why they're doing this. And they promise you payments in connection with providing credit card numbers and other personal information. Next slide. Okay, there's also a utility and lifeline moratorium in place. For utility moratoriums, many states have suspended public utility disconnections. In my case, SoCal Edison sent me a letter stating that they will not disconnect my electricity due to pandemic, even though I will not be able to afford making payments for my utility bill. However, there are instances where we experience power outage, especially during this time, because everyone's using their AC, causing overusing of electricity. So please save and in consuming electricity. There's also the lifeline termination suspended. So what is a lifeline program? It provides discount on phone services for qualifying low-income consumers to ensure that all Americans have the opportunities and security that phone service brings, including being able to connect to jobs, family, and emergency services. So Lifeline is part of the Universal Service Fund. If you need information regarding this program, please go to the FCC or Federal Communications Commission website. Next slide, please. Other resources to help during coronavirus pandemic. So there are mortgage relief options. If you can't make your mortgage payments because of the coronavirus, start by understanding your options and reaching out for help. Again, please reach out to our department. You can check our website, dcba.lacounty.gov. Our phone number, again, is 1-800-593-8222 for assistance in mortgage relief options. For student loans, it is federally held. Student loans are being postponed right now and interest has been waived. So to protect your credit reports and scores play an important role in your future financial opportunities. Again, go check annualcreditreport.com for your credit report. If there's any errors over there, you can file a dispute to the main 3 service credit bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Next slide. Okay, so now we will discuss about loan modification. Next slide, please. So going back to the notice of trust to sale, if you don't have time and would like to cure default as soon as possible, you can reinstate the amount owed. So what is reinstatement? Reinstatement means you pay the lender the balance you owe to make the loan current. So once you reinstate the amount owed and the loan is in the current state, you will proceed in paying your regular mortgage payments in a monthly basis. So please pay your mortgage on time. All mortgages are due on the first day of the month. Second day is considered late, but lenders do give you 15 days grace period. Next slide, please. Okay, so in this slide, we will talk about bankruptcy. Again, just a reminder that foreclosure prevention counselors here in DCBA are not attorneys and we do not give legal advice. I'll just go over the types of bankruptcies out there. please consult an attorney for further information. So there's Chapter 7 bankruptcy. So it's a liquidation of assets. You may keep or not keep your home. There's Chapter 13 bankruptcy. You will keep the house. You will present a repayment plan to the court with your attorney, and your lender needs an approval, if they're okay with their proposal or not. Chapter 11 bankruptcy, this is for corporate self-employed business. And Chapter 12 bankruptcy, if you have an agricultural land or a farm. Next slide. Okay, what is the impact of bankruptcy? Please keep in mind that the filing will remain on the credit report for 10 years. In Chapter 7, the servicer usually wants the homeowner to assume the mortgage, even though the personal liability for the debt will be discharged. In Chapter 13, the bankrupt homeowner may have to pay more monthly than what they were paying before filing. And this may include attorney fees, foreclosure fees, etc. Next slide. Okay, so going back to the foreclosure process, if the property is not sold before the foreclosure sale, it will be auctioned off as scheduled. The auction usually happens in a public place. I do see most of the time at a DoubleTree hotel or in a plaza, and will be presided over by a local sheriff or a court appointee or the trustee of the servicer. The auction will be open to the public, and anyone may attend and bid on the property. The property will be awarded to the highest bidder, who will then have to provide proof of financing, usually a down payment on their winning bid. What I also do see is that if you have cash available on hand, then usually, you will be awarded as the bidder. Within a few days, the winning bidder will have to provide the full amount of their bid and will then be awarded control of the property. A document will be recorded, the trust is deed upon sale, informing the public that there is a new owner of this property through foreclosure. If a third party does not bid, the property reverts back to the servicer or the investor, who will take it into inventory as real estate owned. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, just a reminder, please contact HUD-approved housing counselors like HPP Cares if you need further assistance about contacting your lender, if you want to understand foreclosure process, or what options do you have during the time of foreclosure. Next slide. Okay, what other agencies that can assist you out there? So if you check the website of Legal Services Corporation to find the nearest legal aid in your city. Next slide. The Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles has a website, which is lafla.org. You can also contact them at 1-800-399-4529 if you need a representation or to consult an attorney. Next slide. Okay, CFPB, or Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they do take action against predatory companies and practices that violate the law and have already returned billions of dollars to harm consumers. To file a complaint, please go to their website, cfpb.org. Next slide. In California, we have the Department of Business Oversight that regulates a variety of financial services, products, and professionals. If you need to file a complaint, please do so on their website at dbo.ca.gov. Catherine, do you want to add anything?
Yes. Hello, and thank you, Cello, for everything. I do want to add a couple things. If in the fact that you are looking to engage with our organization, I would suggest that you go to our website, hppcares.org. You'll look for the turquoise button on the homepage that says mortgage relief. You can watch a video with me explaining some of the processes of working with our organization. And you'll also be able to schedule your appointment there. So if you're interested and you want to get into our office and work with one of our counselors, you can do it all at your fingertips. If you are not technically savvy, you're more than welcome to call 562-281-8861, and we'll be more than happy to assist you. All of our webinars, as well as our counseling sessions, are being done via Zoom. And if you're not able to do Zoom, then we'll just regularly have a phone call, headset to handset, and we'll just basically have a discussion with you and figure out how we'll get documents back and forth to one another. Thank you.
Okay, so it appears that we do have a few questions that were submitted through the chat and also through our Q&A. Okay, so the first one that was submitted, I think it was submitted on the chat, is if we are in forbearance, does that automatically put you in foreclosure status once the forbearance is over?
I can answer that, no. But I definitely suggest prior to the month that the forbearance is over, because I'm sure they gave you an expiration date, you want to make sure that you contact the servicer to find out what your options are. And your options may be extending the forbearance if you potentially don't have any income coming in, or you may say, hey, I'm back to work. What are my options on either curing the forbearance, or can I start going back to make my payments on time, or can I get a loan modification? So you have several options, but don't wait until the expiration day, which is, whatever day. Immediately get on the phone and speak with one of the representatives from that financial institution.
Yeah, and I just also want to add that if you were placed on a forbearance, but you were already delinquent, then that status will remain as delinquent. So it will just pick up from that point on. So unfortunately, Catherine and Cello explained earlier that if you have not missed payments and then you're placed on a forbearance, then your status is still in good standing. However, in this situation where if you were delinquent or already missed payments, then that status will remain, but it will pick up once the forbearance period is over. Okay, so we did receive a question from Luis. And his question is, the process of alerting borrowers about being late or in default would be in place once the moratorium is lifted, correct? So I think the question is about the filing of notices of default. And that just depends on who owns your loan. So during the presentation, we learned about the government-sponsored enterprises. We learned about the Federal Housing Administration, who oversee HUD loans, the VA, the USDA. So all these protections that were afforded under the CARES Act, and most of the government-sponsored enterprises or the government-backed loans agreed not to continue or start any foreclosure activity. However, there are smaller lenders out there, known as hard money lenders or private lenders, that do have the ability to start the foreclosure process. So if they don't offer any forbearance plans or any kind of mortgage relief assistance, they do have the right to initiate the foreclosure process. Anything else you ladies want to add to that?
If you have a smaller lender and they're not affording you, if you have any lender who's not affording you a forbearance and they're telling you that they have started the foreclosure process, please take them serious. Please get a hold of a housing counseling agency. Prior to, or I'll tell you, 4 weeks ago, I've been dealing with sell dates. Smaller lenders, regular lenders, please adhere when they are not offering you any options. Get with a housing counselor.
Yes.
Yeah. The only option that they can give you would be reinstatement. So that means paying what you owe them, or in worst case scenario, file for bankruptcy. So there's
Yep.
very limited options when you have a private lender or a private investor as your lender.
And I want to just add, it wasn't mentioned, but you can in fact go to the bankruptcy clinics that the bankruptcy court offers. I'll make sure that we get the link for them because it's not physically at the bankruptcy court like it used to be, where you could go to a clinic on Monday, Wednesday at certain times. They're actually doing Zoom meetings and things of that nature, but you definitely want to reach out before you hire an attorney. You want to reach out to the bankruptcy clinic, the free services, and get all the details and see what you can do for yourself. And then what would be the process to hire your attorney when you do need to get one in the bankruptcy process.
Good information. So we do have another question that was submitted by Arthur. Arthur's question is, I found out my loan is held by Freddie Mac. How do I communicate to the servicer I want the forbearance amount to be added to the back of the loan as additional monthly payments? And I believe Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae have the payment deferral repayment option. So if Catherine or Cello would like to answer that.
Cello, you want to take it?
Sure. Okay, so first thing you need to do is, contact a HUD-approved counselor or contact TCBA, and we will actually assist you in applying for it. So it's not automatically available, to everyone, because your lender, your mortgage servicer need to know if you have the available income to support or to be qualified for this loan modification or this deferral that you want this missed payments to put back on the loan. So it's not automatic. You would need to apply for it. You would need to submit the necessary documentation for them to review it, go into the underwriter, and then they will decide if you will be qualified for it.
Okay. I think there's a couple more questions on the chat. So they're asking, okay, about the slides. So we'll make that available on our website. Next question is, what is the likelihood of Governor Newsom's extending the moratorium?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
We cross our fingers.
Yes. Here's another question we just got. What is the website for the bankruptcy clinic?
You would go to, hold on one second, the Central Court. What you can do is you can Google Bankruptcy Court California, or you can go to cacb.uscourts.gov, and I'll put it in the chat box for everyone. And then from there, you'll look for no attorney, and it will in turn show you where to go from there. So you'll select, I don't have an attorney or don't have an attorney, which should be in the first little dashboard. Click that. And then there's a myriad of information, videos, and then it also lets you know for the free clinic how to get those details.
Okay. There was a question submitted by Genoveva, and I think her question is, what is reverse mortgage after 62 years old?
So a reverse, So a reverse mortgage just allows you to age in the property without having to make a mortgage payment. The reason I suggested it and threw it out there is because there are some seniors that just don't have enough income and they have a lot of equity in the property and they're not able to obtain a loan modification. So what I'd like for you to be aware of is there is an option to still keep your home. No, you don't have to sell it. And you can be in a position where you can access, sometimes, depending on how late you are on your mortgage payments, you can access the equity, and or they'll say you can't access the equity because you're so behind, but they'll cure it. Your mortgage will be basically paid off and gone, and then you're able to age in place there. But there is an extensive counseling session that you must have with a HUD-approved housing counselor like myself or any of the other ones throughout California, that they take you through the process so you truly understand what you are getting when you sign up and get a reverse mortgage as a 62-year-old. So if you have adult children, I would suggest that you have them attend those sessions so they too can understand if something happens at your demise, what would be the next step to potentially keep the property or acquire the property back from the lender.
Good. And just one other thing I want to add is that we talked about repayment of forbearance, I guess amounts. Also, there's things like loan modification that can be considered. If you have an FHA loan, there's a thing called partial claims. But the problem with those is that in order to be reviewed for those options, you must show that you have adequate income to support that. So they do what's called a waterfall review. It's kind of like the multi-tier review that they do. Obviously, if you have enough income, they'll probably place you on a repayment plan first. If that repayment plan is unaffordable, then they'll review you for the next option, will most likely be something like a loan modification. And from the experience that we had from the first crisis, these are things like reducing the interest rate to say 2%, and they try to come up with a scenario. If that's not enough, they extend the term of the loan. Then they try to do a deferment of a principal balance. So there's a lot of things they can do. But unfortunately, we understand that we do have a high number of unemployment. So there's a high number. I think it's somewhere about almost 10% or so in California. So which is kind of mirroring some of those numbers from the first crisis that we experienced. And I say that because I don't know if there's many of us that survived or went through the Great Depression, but those are just other things that are out there that we touched on lightly, but we didn't get into a depth. And that's because we understand where some of our homeowners are at with this. Either they're unemployed or they're underemployed, meaning that they're working less hours or they took a job that pays them less. So when it comes to modifications, they factor in income. And if there's not enough income, unfortunately, they will be unable to come up with an affordable payment for you. I think we may have one more question, and I think we have a few minutes left. Oh, no, that was just a thank you from Genoveva. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up the presentation. So thank you, Catherine and Cello, for the thorough presentation. Since many of the protections under the CARES Act have ended and the uncertainty of a new relief bill, now more than ever, homeowners will rely on nonprofit service providers to help them navigate this issue. The DCBA and housing counselors feel that this situation could replicate the foreclosure crisis during the Great Recession, not depression, but recession of 2008. From 2008 to 2012, over 1.8 million homes were foreclosed in California, and homeowners lost more than $362 billion in home value. In Los Angeles County, more than 381,000 homes were foreclosed, which resulted in a loss of over $150 billion in home value. According to the Department of Treasury, 2.9 million homeowners received assistance through one of the programs offered under President Obama's Making Home Affordable. Of those 2.9 million homeowners, approximately 59% of them received a permanent modification. A large portion of these outcomes can be attributed to the countless hours housing counseling agencies spent counseling homeowners and gathering documentation to ensure a complete and accurate application was submitted to the lenders on time. So for all the service providers with us today, please help us get the word out and steer people towards reliable help. If you or someone you know is facing foreclosure, please remember that DCBA and HUD-approved counseling agencies like HPP Cares is here to help. Our services are free, confidential, and our well-trained staff can work with you and your lender to explore all your options to saving your home. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.